Charana Padama Kevala Bhakti Swadama Shri Guru Charana Padama Kevala Bhakti Swadama Bandhamui Savadana Mate Bandhamui Savadana Mate Prasade bha eva vuturiya ja Chara prasade bha eva vuturiya ja Krishna prapti ho jaha hote Krishna prapti ho jaha hote Padama Vakya Sitete Koriya Kyo Guru Mukha Padama Vakya Sitete Koriya Kyo Arna kori ho mane asha Arna kori ho mane asha Guru Charane Ruti Ese Uttama Gati Shri Guru Charane Ruti Ese Uttama Gati Ye prasade pure sarva asha Ye prasade pure sarva asha Purana diloye jame jame prabhu se Purana diloye jame jame prabhu se Divya Jnana Hriday Prakachita Divya Jnana Hriday Prakachita Prema Bhakti Jayate Avirya Vinasudate Prema Bhakti Jayate Avirya Vinasudate Hare Gajar Charita Hare Gajar Charita Shri Guru Karuna Sindhu Adhama Janara Bandhu Shri Guru Karuna Sindhu Adhama Janara Bandhu Lokanath Lokera Devana Lokanath Lokera Devana Ha Prabhu kar daya deho more bhar chaya Ha Prabhu kar daya deho more bhar chaya He tejo sukh sukte bhuvana He tejo sukh sukte bhuvana Ha Prabhu kara daya deha more parachaya Ha Prabhu kara daya deho more parachaya Prabhu kar daya deho more parachaya He vejo sukh sukre bhuvana Srila Prabhupada Kodita Pavana Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Namah Vishnupadaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvichecha Shunyavadi paschatya deshakarine. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Sivasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Sivasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Sivasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Sivasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Sivasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Sivasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda. Jaya Gaura Bhaktavrinda. Jaya Gaura Bhaktavrinda. Yasomati Nandana Brajavarnagara Gokula Rangana Kana Yasomati Nandana Brajavarnagara Gokula Rangana Kana Gopi Parana Dana Madana Manohara Gopi Parana Dana Madana Manohara Kaliya Damana Vidana Kaliya Damana Vidana Amala Harinama Meya Vilasa Amala Harinama Meya Vilasa Vipinna Purandara Navina Nagara Bhara Bhakti Vajana Suvasa Vipinna Purandara Navina Nagara Bhara Bhakti Vajana Suvasa Jana Palana Surakulana Sanma Jana Palana Surakulana Sanma Nanda Godana Rakoala Nanda Godana Rakoala Govinda Madhava Navanita Taskara Hey Govinda Madhava Navanita Taskara Sundarananda Gopala Sundarananda Gopala Ayasumati Nandana Brajabaranagara Gokula Rangana Kana Yasumati Nandana Brajabaranagara Gokula Rangana Kana Tata Chara Gopi Vasanara Ramona Tata Chara Gopi Vasanara Ora Tarasika Kripa Maya Era Tarasika Kripa Maya Ase Radha Vallabha Vrindavana Natavara Sri Radha Vallabha Vrindavana Natavara Kokoti Vinoratraya Kokoti Vinoratraya Amala Harinama Meya Vilasa Govinda Madhava Navarita Taskara Sri Radha Vallabha Vrindavana Natavara Oh Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna, 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram, Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram, Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram, Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jayo Radha Shama Sundar Radha Shama Sundar Radhe Jayo Radha Shama Sundar Radha Shama Sundar Radhe Jaya Krishna Balaram Krishna Balaram Krishna Balaram Jaya Krishna Balaram Jaya Krishna Balaram Krishna Balaram Krishna Balaram Jaya Krishna Balaram Jaya Gauranita Jaya Gauranita Jaya Gauranita Gauranita Jaya Gauranita Jaya Gauranita Jaya Gauranita Jaya Gauranita Prabhupada 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 Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Prabhupada Jai Gaur Hriva 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 Gaur Hriva Anita Gaur Hriva 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 Gaur Hriva Jai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Baba Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivrajakacharya Vishtotarustu Shri Srimad A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivrajakacharya Vishtotarustu Shri Srimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Shri Haridas Thakur Ki Jai प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद की जय श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंद राधा कुंद गिरि गोवर्धन की जय श्री वृंदावन धाम की जय मायापुर धाम की जय जगन्नाथपुरी धाम की जय नूरमनैती धाम की जय तुलसी महारानी की जय भक्ति देवी की जय यामुन माई की जय गंगा माई की जय श्री हरिनाम संकीर्तन की जय निताय गो प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल समवेत भक्त वृंद की जय All grace to the assembled devotees, all grace to the assembled devotees, all grace to the assembled devotees, all grace to Sri Sri Guru Gauranga.
Shri Shri Radhe Shyam Ki Jai. Let's see what I open up to. Chapter 11, verse number 40 of Bhagavad Gita. Obeisances to you from the front, from behind, and from all sides, O unbounded power. You are the master of limitless might. You are all-pervading, and thus you are everything. Who is speaking? Arjuna. Jai. Purport. Out of loving ecstasy for Krishna, his friend Arjuna is offering his respects from all sides. He is accepting that he is the master of all potencies and all prowess, and far superior to all the great warriors assembled on the battlefield. It is said in the Vishnu Puran 1.969, Yoyam tavagato deva samipam devatagana sattvam eva jagat shashta yatta sarva gato bhavan. Whoever comes before you, be he a demigod, is created by you, O Supreme Personality of Godhead. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. This morning's class will be given by Dravida Prabhu. Tomorrow we're expecting His Holiness Jairaita Maharaj to give the what do you call it? Anything goes. No? Oh, he's talking on his book.
Tomorrow Maharaj will speak from his Vaishnava commentary on the most philosophical book in the Bible, the biblical book of Ecclesiastes. So that'll be 7 o'clock after Sandhya Arati. Everyone's welcome. And next Wednesday also, 2 Wednesdays in a row.
Good. And tonight is Jaiva Dharma in the temple room with Pran Govinda Prabhu. And here are the devotees who have assisted their Guru in dressing the TTs today. Shri Shri Radhe Shyam were dressed by Mother Akuti, Chota Radhe Shyam by Mother Leela, Shri Shri Krishna Balaram, Mother Ashtasaki, Chota Krishna Balaram by Mother Prema Manjari, Shri Shri Gauranitai, Mother Guru Prasad, Chota Gauranitai by Mother Madhuri Gopi, and the Gurus and Lord Nishingadev by Ram Narayan Prabhu.
D. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari Jai Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Paramahansa Brajacharya, Ashtotirtha Shri Srimad, His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Jaya Vishnupad Paramahansa Brajacharya, Ashtotirtha Shri Srimad, His Divine Grace, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur ki Jai. Ananda Koti Vaishnavinda ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki Jai. Grantharaj Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai. Samaveta Bhaktavinda ki Jai. All glories to the Assam devotees. All glories to the Assam devotees. All glories to the Assam devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga. Narayana Namaskritya Narang Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudire. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, we should offer our respectful obeisances unto Lord Narayan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author, and unto Srila Prabhupada, the translator, commentator, and spiritual master, and in this case, the inspirer of the devotees who worked on this part of Bhagavatam. Nashtaprayesha Badreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatyuttama Shloke Bhaktim Bhavati Naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes on Srimad Bhagavatam and by rendering devotional service to the pure devotee, all that is inauspicious within the heart is destroyed almost to nil, and loving devotion to the Supreme Lord who is glorified in transcendental songs is established as an irrevocable fact. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this 22nd day of April 2014 in Alachua, we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, the Summum Bonum, chapter 40, the prayers of Akura, text number 8 and 9. So we'll begin with the word-by-word meanings. Tvam, you. Eva, also. Anye, others. Shiva, by Lord Shiva. Uktena, spoken. Margena, by the path. Shivarupinam, in the form of Lord Shiva. Bahu Acharya, of many teachers. Vibhedena, following the different presentations. Bhagavantam, the
the Supreme Lord. Upasate, they worship. Tvame vanye shivoktena, margena shivarupinam, bhav acharya vibhedena, bhagavantam upasate. Tvame vanye shivoktena, margena shivarupinam, bhavacharya vibhedena, bhagavantam upasate. Tvame vanye shivoktena, margena shivarupinam, bhavacharya vibhedena, bhagavantam upasate. Tvame vanye shivoktena, shivarupinam, Tvame vanye shivoktena, Gena shivarupinam, bhavacharya vibhedena, bhagavantam upasate. Ladies? Tvame vanye shivoktena, magena shivarupinam, bhavacharya vibhedena, bhagavantam upasate. Tvame vanye shivoktena, magena shivarupinam, bhavacharya vibhedena, bhagavantam upasate. Translation. There are still others who worship you, the Supreme Lord, in the form of Lord Shiva. They follow the path described by him and interpreted in various ways by many teachers. Purport. The words Tvam Eva, you also, indicate that the path of worshipping Lord Shiva is indirect and therefore inferior. Akrura himself is following the superior method by directly worshipping Krishna or Vishnu with his prayers. Next text. Sarvahevya janti tvam, Sarvadeva mayeshwaram, Yepyanya devata bhakta, Yadyapyanyantiyak prabho. But all these people, my Lord, even those who have turned their attention away from you and are worshipping other deities, are actually worshipping you alone, O embodiment of all the demigods. Purport. The idea here is that even those who worship the demigods are indirectly worshipping the Supreme Lord Vishnu. The understanding of such worshippers, however, is imperfect. Om Jnana Timarandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilatam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance. My spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So those of you who are familiar with the Bhagavad Gita, I assume most of you are, could not fail to call to mind a verse there, which I am now going to share with you. In the 9th chapter, text 23, Krishna says something practically identical. He says there, after the verse, Ananyaschintayanto mam yedina payupasate, tesham nityabhyaktanam yogakshema mahamyaham. There he's, after describing how futile it is to worship the demigods for elevation to the higher planets, because even if you succeed, and there he says something very interesting, just like Akrura does, those who worship me by drinking the soma juice and trying to go to the heavenly planets and following the prescriptions in the Vedas that describe demigod worship, they may go to the heavenly planets. Tetam bhukva swagalogam vishalam, and there enjoy vast amounts of godly delights. But chine punne matyalokam vishanti. After the pious credit, just like credit in the bank, you deposit so much money in the bank and you have your credit card and it works and works and works and works, and then at a certain point it spits it back and they say, sorry, Mr. Smith, this card won't work. And then if you don't have any money, you have to go back to work. So back to work means coming back to this Martyaloka, in this case, Martyalokam Vishanti, that when your pious credit is finished, you have to come back to this world of birth and death. And therefore, Krishna says, Evam tahi dhammamanupapannagadatam kama. For those who simply want to fulfill material desires by worshipping the gods or anything else, you just come and go. It's frustrating. You don't end up really making any progress back to Godhead. And so in the next verse, Krishna gives the contrast. Ananyas chintayanto mam yedinapayupasate tesham nityavayuktanam yogaksham vahagam. But, on the other hand, those who always worship me directly, with exclusive devotion, meditating on my transcendental form, to them I carry what they lack and I preserve what they have. So this yoga kshema, this is a standard Sanskrit idiom, which means yoga, the things that you need to live, and kshema, your security, your safety, your situation. So Krishna says, I personally carry that for my pure devotees. And then in the next verse, he very much echoes Akrura's prayer. Yepyan devata bhakta yajante shadayanvita tepi mamevakonte yajant avadipurvakam. Those who are devotees of other gods and who worship them with faith actually worship only me, O son of Kunti, but they do so in a wrong way. So this, of course, is based on the understanding that all these gods, whether it's Shiva or Brahma, or subordinate gods, or Durga, they all get their powers from Krishna. Everything is coming from Krishna. So whatever you can get from them, you can get directly from Krishna. So since the purport was kind of short, I'm going to read this short purport that Prabhupada gives to this verse, which expands on this idea. Now, Prabhupada begins the purport by quoting Krishna. Persons who are engaged in worship of demigods are not very intelligent. That's mentioned in the 7th chapter, Opamadasam, not much brain substance, probably. They're not very intelligent, although such worship is offered to me indirectly, Krishna says. For example, when a man pours water on the leaves and branches of a tree without pouring water on the root, he does so without sufficient knowledge or without observing regulative principles. Similarly, the process of rendering service to different parts of the body is to supply food to the stomach. The demigods are, so to speak, different officers and directors in the government of the Supreme Lord. One has to follow the laws made by the government, not by the officers or the directors. Similarly, everyone is to offer his worship to the Supreme Lord only. That will automatically satisfy the different officers and directors of the Lord. The officers and directors are engaged as representatives of the government, and to offer some bribe to the officers and directors is illegal. This is stated here as avidi purvakam. Avidi purvakam means not according to vidhi, or the actual instructions of the Vedas. It's a mistaken idea. In other words, Krishna does not approve the unnecessary worship of the demigods. So this is the statement of Akrura. He's dealing with this after having explained. He says there are others. Well, who did he describe before? That was in the previous class. Those who are pure Vaishnavas. What is it? In the pursuit of knowledge. Oh no, it was in text 6 he was describing. Yes. No, where is it? I'm sorry, I'm losing my track here. Anyway, he's describing the pure devotees, and then there's these others. And it's the same thing that we find in the Bhagavad Gita. By contrast, Krishna is illustrating the importance of worshiping him exclusively, which of course culminates in his famous instruction, Sarvadharma Parityajya Amanekam Sharanam Vraja. So now, but how does Shiva worship? Those who worship Shiva for material benefits, we find they're often demons. Ravana was a great worshiper of Shiva, wasn't he? Was Jarasandha also? Or was he worshipping Kali? I think he also worshipped both. And oftentimes, and who was that famous demon who was cutting? Vrikasura. He's cutting off parts of his body horrifically and offering into the fire, worshipping of Shiva, Lord Shiva. And what happened? Ultimately, out of his compassion, he's about to cut off his head and offer it into the fire. Just see how ghastly this form of worship is. And then, so Shiva, out of compassion, he appears out of the fire and offers him a benediction. What is the benediction he chose right here? Yeah. I mean, this is like mode of ignorance, personified. So Shiva says, okay, and then he wants to try it on Shiva. Where's the devotion? Where's the bhakti? You understand? So, eventually, the last time he was tricked. Shiva's running now because he knows that this benediction is going to work. So Vrikasura is running after Shiva all the way up to Vaikuntha, and Vrikasura, he's tired, he's breathing hard by all running. And Krishna, he disguises himself as a Brahmin boy or something and says, oh, take it easy, take it easy. The body is so important. Rest a little bit. And he wants to know what are you doing? So, I'm chasing Shiva. He's trying to cheat me. Or, he gave me this benediction. He said, oh, Shiva? His benediction is useless, He's cheated you. And Krishna, one of his qualities, he's so skillful at speaking, he can convince anybody of anything. Bhava dukkha. So he said, look, if you doubt my words, just try it. Try it. Touch your head. You'll see it doesn't work. Yeah? And really? And he touches his head and boom, it cracks open and finished. So but just see who is worshipping Lord Shiva. So, but that doesn't mean that Shiva himself is not a Vaishnava. Shiva, he allows the Bhutas and the Pretas and the ghosts and the demons to worship him so that at least they'll be connected in that way. They get some kind of auspiciousness. Shiva himself, the word Shiva means auspicious. Well, who does Shiva worship? Now for that, we have a wonderful section of the Bhagavatam called Singing the Song of Lord Shiva in the 4th canto. And I'd like to share one verse with you that he chants in the midst of that prayer, near the end of it. He's teaching this to the Prachetas, who are then going to chant this prayer while staying under the water for 10,000 years, so that they become qualified to then propagate. They're meant to be Prajapatis. But before that, they learn this prayer, singing the song of Lord Shiva. So within this prayer, there's a wonderful direct prayer of Shiva to Krishna, and he's praying to the lotus feet. So this is the mood of Lord Shiva, who's known as the best Vaishnava, Vaishnavanam Yata Shambhu. Right? So Lord Shiva prays, Padasharat Padma Palasha Rochisha, Nakad Dubir Nonta Magang Vadunvata, Padasha Yasvi Mapasta Sadvasham, Padam Godo Marga Gadusta Modusham. My dear Lord, your 2 lotus feet are so beautiful that they appear like 2 blossoming petals of the lotus flower that grows during the autumn season. Indeed, the nails of your lotus feet emanate such a great effulgence that they immediately dissipate all the darkness in the heart of a conditioned soul. My dear Lord, kindly show me that form of yours which always dissipates all kinds of darkness in the heart of a devotee. My dear Lord, you are the supreme spiritual master of everyone. Therefore, all conditioned souls covered with the darkness of ignorance can be enlightened by you as a spiritual master. A beautiful verse. And we also know that when Lord Chaitanya went to South India, of course he's delivering everybody, he's propagating Sankirtan, but he also worshipped in many Shiva temples. And the prayers that he sang there are recorded by Murari Gupta in his book, the Chaitanya Charita, I think it is. And I don't know any of them by heart, I don't know them here, but the gist of these prayers is that he's praising him as a great Vaishnava, and he's praying for, please bless me with devotion to Govinda. Lord Chaitanya is teaching how one should pray to Lord Shiva for the greatest gift Not anything material, but for bhakti, yoga. So, this idea of worship, now let's shift gears just a little bit and go to the 7th chapter, another section where Krishna demeans, or he dismisses, if you will, the worship of the demigods. After describing how one is really in knowledge, bahunam dharmanamante jnanavanam papadyate, one who really is in knowledge, after many, many births, surrenders unto me. But then he says, kamaistaista rita jnana papadninte anya devata. Those whose intelligence is stolen away by material desires, rita jnana, they worship other gods than me. Tung tung niyamamastaya prakata niyataksaya. Controlled by their own natures, they follow certain rules and regulations for that worship. And then he says, yo yo yam yam tanu bhakta shradayachna michati tisita sachalam shradham tam. Whatever you want to worship. And now you broaden this. You know, what is the essential quality of this idea of worship? This is kind of something that human beings always go to, whether they're in the Vedic culture or not. You know, today, you know, it's right in the Bible. We're talking about the Bible now. You meditate on Ecclesiastes, but doesn't say about you have to worship either God or Mammon, right? Isn't there a God of wealth, right? Kind of a God, and people worship that in today's society. What does the worship mean? First of all, they're meditating a lot on it, right? They're seeing that wealth as the provider of yoga kshema, of all security and all necessities and all pleasures and everything. And it work like anything. They study, they go to gurus, you know, maybe going on the internet. How can you invest? How can you do this? How can I make more money? Even the education. You know, when we were in school, I mean, I remember when I went to school, there was a large percentage of the devotees, of the students, they're devotees, but who were into the humanities. Remember that? I mean, it wasn't like the humanities, what are you going to do with that degree in literature and art, you know? In other words, that was a valid pursuit. But now, practically the whole education, even from high school and below, is geared toward how can you get a job? How can you be trained to do something that's marketable in society, right? So, that means you're worshiping Mammon. You're worshiping, you know. And the scientists, they worship the material energy. You're investigating it, you're looking at it, you're trying to learn, right? So many things. You're going to those who know more, and it's a kind of, you know, go to a guru, chemistry guru, whatever. Guru means teacher, ultimately. Why? So we can manipulate this material energy. So we can you know, we can get more oil. Or we think that the gas is finished. We can frack this shale and we can get so much gas, you know, natural gas. And that way we'll be more powerful and so forth. This is a form of worship. So Krishna says in this, yo yo yamyam tanum bhakta shradayachita michati. Whatever form you want to worship with faith, I'll make that faith strong. I'll make the faith strong. And then he says, sataya shradaya yuktas tasaradhanamiyate labate chitata kaman mahaivavi tanatan. And with that faith, you will not worship that God or gods that you worship, and you'll get some result. But whatever result you get, you should know it's actually coming from me. That's the problem. People don't know that. They forget completely where all of the benedictions are coming from, and they simply think that it's coming from our powerful worship, whatever form it may take. So then Krishna says, this is the conclusion. Antavattu palam tesham tadbadaltyalpamadesham. But these gifts, these results of this worship, are all temporary and insignificant. These pala tesham. And only desired by the Alpamadesa, those who are fools, not very smart. And then he has a line that's practically identical to a verse you'll recognize in the 9th chapter. Devan devajo yanti madbhakta yanti mamati. Those who worship the gods go to the gods, but those who worship me come to me. So now we're back to the idea of that what absorbs your mind, what absorbs your heart and your energy, that's where your consciousness is going to be. And that's going to be determining your next birth. So these scientists, they're worshiping vast amount of money, vast amount of science is spent. We don't even know. It's secret in researching new weapons, new ways in which you can, and not just, weapons like shoot a bullet or shoot a missile or something. Cyber weapons, little tiny drone insects, that'll come around and surveil, all kinds of things. This is all part of the, misuse of obviously, of intelligence and a form of worship. What kind of consciousness is that? It's the most demoniac, woe, tamasic consciousness you can imagine. And yet that is, what people are absorbing their minds in. So this whole movement is meant for redirecting the human energy, beginning with what people are worshiping in the broader sense. And how to do that? Through every means. Through, most obviously, your intelligence. Intelligence is key. That's our difference between us and the animals. Understanding that worshiping anything else, absorbing the mind in anything else, but Krishna, but God, and reestablishing our relationship will lead to so much suffering. Well, how to come to that conclusion? Oh, you're not the body, Prabhu. The spirit, consciousness is supreme. If you allow your consciousness to get absorbed in these lower modes of nature, then you will suffer greatly. So the whole science of bhakti is meant to attract us away from these frustrating objects to try to interact with and worship and aspire for, which leads us astray. These are called the hridaya granthi, the knots in the heart. They're subtle, but they tie us to the gross world, And some of them are ideas. My friend Pushkar, he always liked to remind me of shlokas that I've forgotten. And so he called my attention to one, I think it's in the sixth canto. Yat Shaktayo Vaninam Vadinam Vai. I forget the whole verse, but it means that, oh Krishna, by your energy, you inspire in different philosophers and different people with their ideas and their philosophies, so that there's an endless variety of wrong philosophies in this world. And it's spoken by very eloquent speakers, and books are written, anything a way that obscure the true philosophy, the actual Bhagavad Dharma, That energy to even think of these things is coming from Krishna. But they don't know that, because the philosophy obscures that, their material desires obscure it. So the Bhagavatam, these prayers of Akrura is of course known for his prayers, and in a few verses we're going to get to these the conclusion of these prayers in the river, right? These are the prayers. He's standing in Yamuna now, and he's praying to a manifestation of Krishna and Balaram, and that's what we're reading now. So he gets to the point near the end of his prayers where he's describing how every living entity is wandering in this world, impelled by their own karma, by their material desires. Aham mameti asagraho, he describes, aham mameti asagraha, which means covered by this essential element of false ego, I am the body and the things in relation to the body or mind. And asadgraha, based on that misconception, so many false philosophies. Agraha is a way of grasping the world, of understanding the world, So that's and brahmite karma bhavanasu. And with these false philosophies and impelled by this false sense of self and desire, they wander in different bodies and different planets. Brahmite karma bhavanasu. And then he says, but I'm also like that. He takes the role of a conditioned soul. Ham chatmat majagaro. I'm also identifying with my body and my wife and children and my home. And in this way, swapna diya, I'm thinking that this dreamlike existence is real, and this is it. And therefore, my whole conception is reversed. Everything is upside down. Anityanat pradukkeshu viparhiyamatiriyaham dvanvaranastamo vishto najani patanakriyam. Very nice verse. You're going to read about it. I'll be gone by then, but in a week or two or so. So what does he say there? Anitya anatma dukeshu. Means that which is not eternal, I'm thinking to be eternal. You know, my situation in this material world. The most amazing thing, that we act and we live as if this situation is permanent. So anitya, anatma, that which I am not, this body and its expansions, I'm thinking is me. And dukeshu, that which are sources, those which are sources of misery, I'm thinking to be sources of pleasure. Right? Yehi sangs bharjaja bhoga dukayone. That the bhoga, the pleasure that comes from sparshaja, is born of the touch or the contact of the senses with the sense objects, is the very source of our misery. Krishna certifies, 5th chapter. But I'm thinking this is where my pleasure is. This food, this person, this idea, whatever. Millions and millions of things that I could become attracted to. So, what in this state? Nityanaba viparya material, dvandvaramos, I'm trying to enjoy these dualities. Tamo vishto, and entering more and more into darkness and ignorance. And the greatest tragedy, najane twatana priyam. I've forgotten that you, my Lord, are my dearmost master and friend. Completely forgotten him. And then he compares it. It's a very nice analogy. Yatabado jalam hitva padichandam todudavai. Just like imagine you're in a desert, but you're in the oasis in the desert. A small oasis, like an acre, big. And you're standing at the edge, you're very thirsty, and right next to your foot is a nice cool pool of water. But it's overgrown with leaves and grasses and things, you can't see it. And so you're looking out into the desert and you see a mirage and you run after it. This is called abudha, someone who's unintelligent. So this is what he says. Tadvatvaham paranmukha. I've turned my face away from you. Just like this person who's running out in the desert. In other words, we have the ocean of bliss in our hearts, every one of us. This is our birthright. This is who we really are. But we're going outside, bahirartamana. We're looking outside for our pleasure, security, yoga, kshema, and everything else. Forgetting the reservoir of pleasure within our hearts. And so, then he laments, Alachua is lamenting. He says, how does it go? I forget the Sanskrit, but he says, oh, my dear Lord, I don't have the strength to control my mind. Even though I know this, theoretically, you just give us the philosophy. He said, but I don't have the strength to control my mind and sense. My senses are pulling me here and there. Now what to do? So the last verse, or near the last verse, he says, but even in this case, I'm throwing myself at your lotus feet. You see? Because I don't know, by your mercy, even if someone is unqualified, and is uncontrolled, by your mercy you can still give him your lotus feet and give him the strength to control the self and come to you. By the mercy of the Guru. He mentions the spiritual master in that verse. Very instructive. So this is how he will conclude this series of prayers on that note. And very instructive. Alachua is the acharya for prayers. We can learn so much here. But again, focusing on the one we're studying today, he's describing the phenomenon of how this worship instinct, if you will, of human beings is misdirected. And life after life, if we don't contact someone in knowledge who can really intervene. I like to give this idea of an intervention. Someone is addicted to some drug or whatever, or alcohol, drug. Then sometimes it becomes impossible. On their own, they can't do anything. Again and again they try, again and again they fall away. So they need an intervention from a friend or relative or somebody who's ready to shake them up and drag them to AA or whatever, right? And please help me. Okay, I surrendered, So it's just like that. We've been addicted to these varieties of sense gratifications and varieties of false philosophies and misworship, for millions of lifetimes. And many of those lifetimes we have no chance. We're just in the animal kingdom. But even as human beings, we have no chance without the intervention of the acharya, the guru, or Krishna himself. Isn't that why he comes? He comes because there's so much confusion. The demons have become ascendant. You know, they're misguiding everybody. Isn't it? I think that's why Krishna came. And during the Advaita Acharya saw, you know, that even though there's Vaishnavas, you know, that there's too many demons, too much confusion in Navadvip, and he prayed that Lord Chaitanya would come, that Krishna would come personally, and he came as Lord Chaitanya. So that intervention happens in these, you know, huge ways that Krishna comes down, Lord Chaitanya comes down, and also personally for each of us. Somebody has to enter into this bubble of confusion that we've created for ourselves and that we're living in. And that's the devotee. The pure devotee, of course, does this in spades, you know. But every one of us has had an experience of a representative of Krishna, representative of the pure devotee, entering into us, giving us a book, inviting us, giving us a smile, somehow or other, a mantra card, inviting us to the temple, somehow giving us a clue that to come into a different kind of atmosphere. And if we're fortunate enough to embrace that, to be receptive to the message, and receptive to the holy name, and then we have a chance of being reformed and redirecting our worship away from matter and the wrong personalities to Krishna, who can actually help us. And as he says, Yoga Kshema Bahamyaham. And one other pertinent verse in this regard comes at the beginning of the second canto. You remember there's a certain point where Shukadeva Goswami is giving a whole, how can I say, you know, it's not polite, a kind of a shopping list, you know, of gods and goddesses that you can worship. If you want a powerful body, you worship Indra. You know, if you want knowledge, you worship Saraswati. You want health, you worship Surya, Surya Namaskar, whatever. And he goes through, and he mentions Shiva twice there. He says, if you want heroism, then you worship the Rudra expansions of Shiva. And if you want a lot of knowledge and become a Muni, you worship Shiva directly. But then, he says, Akama sarva kamo va, moksha kama udaradi, tivrena bhakti yogena yajeta purusham param. That whether you happen to be free of all material desires, in other words, you're already very advanced, or you're full of all kinds of material desires, or you want liberation, moksha kama, and notice that all of these are different kinds of kamas. They're different kind of material. Even desire for liberation for oneself is a material desire. But if you're intelligent, udaradi, broad-minded and understanding, then you'll render intense bhakti yoga and pure tivrena bhakti to the Supreme Person. And then all of your desires will be fulfilled. Well, what happens there, as many of us have experienced, is that those other desires, they kind of fade away. If you don't feed them, if you don't meditate on them and engage in trying to fulfill them, then the desire for Krishna bhakti, for things in relation to Krishna, takes over, and the others naturally fall away. Param drishva navartate, vishayam vinivartate. So that's the only way that we can actually become free from the thrall of these different attractions to worship money, you know, worship power, worship this, worship that, and become completely confused. So it's a question of directing. Of course, it's a yoga process. How much can we have this one-pointed worship of Krishna and the service of Krishna? That is our struggle. That's our sadhana, so that we don't become diverted. And that will give us the greatest benefit. Okay, so I'll end there now. Maybe let me read these two translations again. There are still others who worship you, the Supreme Lord, in the form of Lord Shiva. They follow the path described by him and interpreted in various ways by many teachers. But all these people, my Lord, even those who have turned their attention away from you and are worshipping other deities, are actually worshipping you alone, O embodiment of all the demigods. Any questions or comments on these points? Trivikrama Prabhu? Oh, I'm sorry, Shesha. I didn't see it.
Prabhu, I take it that, you know, we talk about worship, of how the materialist worshiping money and things like that. You're not speaking allegorically, but actually saying that the activity, the inclination of the human being is misdirected in that way, and it's the same worship that would be, same mentality, same activity that would be used in worshiping God.
It's distorted, but I mean, the same. If you study it, you can see that the same elements are there. You know, what is worship? I mean, obviously, the first thing is it pays attention, and you glorify, and you desire some result from that worship. You know, so think about that. Especially whenever the political season comes, and nowadays it's practically all the time, right? So what are they doing? You know, these politicians. They're trying to draw your worship. They want tribute. You have to give some donation so they can pay for the campaign. They glorification, and of course you're looking for, in general, hope and change, right? Because no one is ever satisfied in the present condition. So they're hoping that this person, will change things because of the upcoming. It's just like worship, worship a demigod. So now, when it becomes a little more impersonal, when I say they worship mammon, or money, well, that has the elements of certainly paying attention, and the idea that this object or this entity will provide my needs, will give me what I need, right? So that's the main idea. Wherever you put your attention, whatever you strive for, that's a form of worship. We are, of course, when it becomes very personal, then you worship a politician, you worship a demigod, in that way, or we worship Krishna. Then the elements of glorification and prayer and surrender, right? You surrender your time and your energy, is obvious. And what are we praying for? We also have prayers, But ideally, we're taught not to pray for anything material to the Supreme Person. To pray for the most valuable thing, love for you, right? Nadanang, nasundarim, kavitamba. So the training is that this particular verse gives up or directly negates that which materialists worship, or what their object of worship. They may worship the demigods to get the money, but others are just worshiping the money, the misers, They may have any regard for God at all, but they worship the money, They gather the money. Like I said, there's a nice prayer like that, how we can redirect. Forgive me, I can't end without one poem. So this is from the Pajavali. I'll do this one. Vichayani, vicharyani, vichinchani punak punak. Kripanasya dhanani vatvam namani bhavantunaha. Compelled to constantly collect and count his precious hoard, the miser contemplates his wealth with avaricious aims. Please bless me to become a miser who's compelled, O Lord, to constantly collect and count and contemplate your names. See? So it's just the object of worship that has to be changed. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. True Vikram had something.
Hare Krishna. Yesterday, Shisha Prabhu was speaking about the Vedas and the supplements. Well, for example, the Puranas in the mode of ignorance, or I don't know if that's the best description, but they propagate that, they propagate that actually Lord Shiva is the supreme, in those. And so, for less intelligent people, that would be heart and soul. They would take that, and so that could be very confusing.
Yeah, it could be if we didn't have the direction from Bhagavatam and the Acharyas. So the understanding is, these are people in the mode of ignorance going to worship, right? They're not going to immediately become free of their material desires, and they're not ready to receive the ultimate message. So therefore, it's good that they worship Shiva, you know. Otherwise, they're going to go off. So Shiva is good to worship. And at one point, if they're focused on Lord Shiva, perhaps they can get, the actual teaching of Lord Shiva, like I was reading from the Bhagavatam, or meet a Shiva worshipper who's intelligent and is worshiping Shiva as Lord Chaitanya taught. Why did he go to the Shiva temples? To teach the Shaivites how to, what to really pray for. I mean, that's the key. You can go to Krishna and also pray, for anything. Let me get the, money, let me get the weapons to beat my enemy, But that's all, that's worship in the mode of ignorance, even if you worship Krishna. It's not worship according to what Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita. So these other Puranas, at least keep these people into the Vedic culture, Better they worship the gods that they worship nothing or that they become impersonalists, because it maintains the idea of worshiping a higher authority. And then if you happen to read the Bhagavad Purana, you'll find that Indra, that ultimately he comes to the point of worshiping Krishna in the Govardhan Lila, right, and glorifying him properly. So that's the understanding. But this was the strategy of Veda Vyas, is that to give something for everybody in all of these other Puranas and other things. But ultimately it becomes very confusing, and in this Kali Yuga it's misused. It's completely misused. This worship of Kali and the idea of we want to eat meat, so we'll offer the goat to Kali, and that's all it is. They're not elevating beyond that. So to cut through all of the confusion and the thicket, Lord Chaitanya came and just gave the complete conclusion of everything. And chant the holy name and read the Bhagavad Gita, the pure devotion, and everything else falls into place. All the God worship and everything. And we should remember, that this is an offense against the holy name. We're taught right away. You chant Hare Krishna, but then if you want to achieve success in the chanting, you have to avoid the 10 offenses, right? And the second offense, to think that the names of the demigods are equal to or independent of the name of Lord Vishnu. Actually, that brings up one other point, if you allow me. That second offense, there's actually 3 parts to it. The idea is that equal and independent of, that's actually 2 different things. So how does it go? Shivasya, Sri Namna. That's the beginning of it. So Shivasya can be the name of Shiva, or it can simply be the auspicious name. But then the key word is Binadiyam. You see? Diya Binnam. So Diya Binna could be divided as Diya Abhinno or Diya Binnam. You know how sometimes the Sanskrit has these 2 different meanings, like Niyamagraha, right? So Diya Binnam, you have the mentality, the idea that there is a separation between the name of Shiva and the name of Krishna. In other words, the idea is that you shouldn't think that, all right, I'll worship Krishna, I'll chant the name of Krishna to get one benediction, but I want to cover my bases, so I better chant the name of Shiva to get the others. Sometimes you see in Hindu temples, they have all the gods and goddesses, and there's Lakshmi Narayan, isn't it? I've seen temples like that. So that's an offense against the holy name, And to think that there's no difference. In other words, that, you can chant the name of Shiva, you can chant the name of Krishna, you get the same benefit. You see the distinction between those 2? One is I have to cover all bases. I chant Shiva's name, I chant Durga's name, I chant Chandri, and also Krishna's name. That's Diya Binnam. But to think that there's no difference, and you can chant any name you want, that's another offense. But here's the offense that we don't chant. It's in the purport there in the Adi Lila, in describing this. And it's very important understanding. To think that the auspicious name of Vishnu is different from Vishnu. There's a separation between Vishnu and his name. That's an offense. So we should remember when we chant Hare Krishna, that Krishna is there. Krishna is there in the sound. And that we're actually able to associate with Krishna through that sound by chanting his name. Pran, and we'll end with that, your discourse. Haribol.
Very nice course. Thank you.
Glories to Prabhupada.
Commentary of you was saying
Mhm.
They are non-different from the of Krishna. But then you have a concept of Shambhuta Krishna, which represents the time, power, Guna Avata, Tamagun,
Yeah.
and then you have a Samsha Bhava Avish, that it's almost looks same as God, but at the same time he gets covered by the Tamagun that they fight against God, helping with Vanashri.
Vanashri, yeah.
Then you have a Nittahanta Swarup, the false ego. And Srila Prabhupada actually, 4th canto, 26th chapter, 21st verse, I believe Prabhupada put in a parable. Actually, Sankarsana is the origin, personification of the false ego. So Lord Shiva always meditating in a form of a snake who is the Sankarsana. And if one, then Prabhupada writes, if one wants to get out of false ego, he should worship, or he has to worship, something like in Hare. He has to worship, or he should worship Lord Shiva, who is all the time meditating on Sana. This way he will be free from false ego.
Right.
Then there is another concept you will see about the Rudra Tattva, the 11 Rudra, where the predominating deity Shiva is not different from the Lord, but the other 10, besides the out of 11, one is Shiva, and then the 10, that's can be very highly qualified jiva, comes from the Brahma's position, or the extension of the Shiva. So totally has to understood in order for understanding the Shiva Tattva. The most complicated.
Yes, very interesting. Thank you very much for that. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.